as soon as she sees that her time of the month has arrived, she sees blood, immediately she knows she is impure and thereby is forbidden to her husband. She's allowed to go to the store, she's allowed to go to work, she's allowed to play with her kids, she's allowed to cook food, she's allowed to do pretty much everything else, but when it comes to her husband, forbidden to touch him, forbidden to sleep in the same bed, forbidden from eating the same plate, and so on and so forth. Until when? Until she has waited for the bleeding to stop, which is typically 4 or 5 days, sometimes longer depending on the woman, but the minimum of 4 days for Sfaradim, 5 days for Ashkenazim. Then another 7 days of everything being clean. She checks with a bdika depending on her circumstance. There are certain leniencies where sometimes a woman that typically would have to check every day. Some women only have to check in the first and the last day. But the point being is, after these, let's say, minimum of 11, 12 days, everything is clean. She goes and she dips in water. What kind of water? The magical water? Are they water that came from Mount Sinai? Are they water that that have certain type of chemicals in them? No, they're rainwater, but nonetheless, it's water. In fact, there's even a halachic permission if there's no way to start a mikveh in a certain place with lack of rain and so on, you're even allowed to start with melting of ice. But again, don't go start collecting a bunch of ice and putting it in some pool. There's obviously other laws that go along with it. But nonetheless, we have a situation here that this woman dipped into water in a local mikveh, and she is now, as soon as she exits that mikveh, she is a completely different status of purity. She went from being the highest level of impurity for her husband, there's nothing stronger from the tum'ah of nidah, to the highest level of kedusha, which is she's Torah to her husband, that it's a very critical, important mitzvah for her to be intimate with her husband that particular night that she dipped in the mikveh. What changed? The water changed something? Did she get clean? No, she already took a shower before she went. It has nothing to do with physical cleanliness. Some people tell me, oh, listen, we're not married, so, my girlfriend can't go to the mikveh, but I make sure that I don't touch her when she has a period, but as soon as she's done, she takes a shower and everything is good, Rabbi, right? No, you're going to Gehinnom, and she's coming along with you, unless you guys do tshuva. Why? It has nothing to do with a shower. No shower in the world can help you. But then the guy told me, yeah, but I heard some rabbi tell me that there is some chacham, maybe it's the Ben Ish Chai, or somebody that said that a guy that pours a certain amount of water in the shower, that's the equivalent of a mikveh. I said, yeah, that's a leniency, that's only for guys, because guys are not obligated to go to the water. But he says, yeah, but what's the difference? My girlfriend is like a guy, she's like my best friend. No, Habibi, don't start making new rules. There's a certain recipe for every person. Now, you have a problem because the recipe doesn't make sense to you. Because you think that everything needs to make sense to you. Because you think that the Torah is like a recipe book, is like a Harry Potter book, it's like your mathematics and your history books that are both not necessarily always in line with things need to be. But they only find out things after the fact because there's certain theories that are proven wrong, certain theories that are proven right. But nonetheless, people don't question that too much unless they get very advanced in those subjects. But when it comes to the Torah, everybody assumes that everything has to fit in to their logic. And when the second that it doesn't, I have a problem with it, and they start creating their own rules. So here we see that the Rambam follows exactly what the Torah itself says, which is that there is a certain recipe. And for those of us that want this recipe to make sense of how to become pure, the Rambam says, don't expect it to make sense. It is not going to make sense. And if it makes sense to you, you're wrong. Why? Because it's not supposed to make sense. This is a divine law. 1 second your wife is pure, the next second she's not pure, 12 days later she's pure again, even though the bleeding already stopped a week and a half ago. It's not something that makes sense.